Elias Thorne drew rein sharp. His iron-blue gaze swept the tangled thickets edging the slim path. His mount fidgeted uneasy, shoes scraping the soil as if feeling the wrongness in the air. Elias tugged the lines a touch and pressed on cautious. Among the withered fronds, a slender Navajo lass huddled tight, her quaking fingers clasping a ragged scrap of fabric. Her broad obsidian orbs brimmed with terror and hopelessness. Her belly hollowed deep, and a soft mew slipped her lips on each ragged inhale. Elias dropped to one knee. He spake no word, just delved his vest pouch and drew a chunk of stale loaf, laying it tender afore her. At prime the wee one shrank back, but famine drove her to stretch a shivering paw. E'en a wee nibble sufficed to summon her tears, a blend of damp and grief tracing down her mud-smeared cheeks. Partake, tiny soul, Elias's timber rumbled low and gravelly, laden with feeling. He scooped the lass to his bosom. Her frame weighed scant as a sheaf of parched twigs, fever-hot against him. Elias cradled her near, peered swift around, then wheeled for his hut. Dusk dropped, and the ridges plunged into a dense shroud of gloom. The sole gleam sprang from the dancing tongues in Elias Thorne's hut grate, hurling shades o'er the wee timber space on the crude timber pallet. The Navajo lass lay quiet, her breaths easing gradual post the meal and a fleece wrap. Elias perched in the timber seat beside her, his iron-blue orbs ne'er straying from the mite. 'Twas many moons since this dwelling last cradled the gentle huff of young breath. Of a sudden, a faint rustle rang just beyond the threshold. Elias stilled, his aged tracker senses flared swift. He grasped the aged six-shooter on the board and edged to the entry. The gloaming breeze slunk through the slim fissures, bearing afar whiffs of char and the pad of soles, soft and wary.
When Elias nudged the portal wide, the form of a lofty dame loomed 'neath the moonbeam. Her build robust, her coarse raven locks matted and feral, her stares dark as smouldering peat. A weal yet scarred her arm, and her form scarce veiled by a frayed pelt skirt. She reared high, clutching a horn dirk in her fist. Her tone grated, yet pealed with vigor. "Where's the wee one?" Elias flinched not, his regard held serene and chill. "She's dozing. If you're her dam, then enter." The dame crossed in. Her orbs brimmed swift at the sight of the tiny lass on the pallet. She sank to haunches by her kin, murmuring through quaking sobs, "A ye no do she ye." Elias beheld mute. He grasped he faced a spirit, both savage and sundered. The dame wheeled to him, her orbs clashing his, proud yet unsure. "I am Lyra, the girl's dam. By Navajo ways, since you spared my kin, this frame now claims yours." The chamber sank to a fraught hush. Elias tarried, his paw clenching unwitting round the butt of his iron, at sea how to retort. Assured of him yearned to spurn, he craved no such yoke. But gazing into Lyra's orbs, he spied more than yield. He spied a beseech for shelter, a crave mere to endure. Elias drew a deep draught, then murmured soft, "Bide here, ye twain. I seek no frame yielded to me. I crave so the wee one to thrive." Lyra voiced not. Her broad paw gripped her daughter's firm, but her orbs wavered, adrift. For the prime, a soul viewed her not as chattel or gear, but plain as kin. Sans, the gale wailed through the fir boughs, and in that tight hut an unseen filament commenced to lace twixt three outcasts, binding their dooms in a wise none yet fathomed. Come the prime morn, wan beams sifted through the grimed timber casement, spilling a mild lustre on Iola's ashen visage. The tiny lass stirred neath the fleece, her lips stirring faint, as if snared in slumber's web. Lyra perched beside her, her broad, work-scarred paw soft brushing the knotted tresses from her kin's brow. The profound obsidian orbs that burned so wild the eve air now bore soul fatigue and lassitude.
Elias Thorne loomed on the veranda, clasping a tin of scalding brew in one fist, his orbs roving the stretch of sun-baked sward, bleached by thirst. 'Twas long since his hearth rang with tongues, with huffs not his lone. But Lyra's nearness roused aught within him, unease, aye, but eke a queer, still drive to guard. That whole morn the tight hut bore an alien vigour. Elias toiled sans by the stock-pen, mending the pail, but his orbs oft flicked to the frame. Within, Lyra wrestled to kindle the blaze. Her potent paws, versed in wielding arms and outlasting clashes, bungled clumsy with the skimmer and the glowing embers. Yet she bided patient, bent not to weigh as load. When Elias crossed back in, dense fumes from the grate made him cough slight. A table squatted a cauldron of gruel, dense and scorched, the tang clinging to each nook of the space. Lyra wheeled to him, orb stern, nigh goading him to jeer. But Elias tapped the board, hauled the pot nigh, dashed in some fluid, swirled it slow, and set it back o'er the blaze. He voiced naught, just held her regard a drawn tick. Lyra gazed down, and for the prime in many moons a prick swelled behind her schnoz. By waning light, Iola had roused full. Her mild chortle pealed through the hut as she clinked her spoon against the dish. This timber stead, erst brimmed soul with gale's moan and a leaden quiet, now cradled wee cosy tones of being. Elias sat athwart them, eyeing dam and kin sup. And deep within he sensed aught commenced to brim a long void. That eve he spread extra fleeces for the pair. As he laid the stout throw over Lyra's shoulders, he caught her breathe faint. E'en this frame I need not yield it. I crave so my kin to thrive well. Elias tarried, his iron-blue orbs held still. He riposted not, he mere wheeled and gained the veranda, kindling a smoke. But in his core he wist aught had commenced to turn.
Athwart, the vault flamed crimson with the tardy gloaming, and within that lorn timber hut vigour flickered anew for the prime in many chill mute moons. 3 dawns hence, being at the hut seemed to settle to a brittle pact. Elias toiled on staunching the parched spring, Lyra tended the blaze, and Iola capered around gleaning wee stems. A scarce sense of plainness had draped a stead, erst swayed sole by zephyr and the chirp of bugs. But out here on the flats, calm eye lay a slim veil. That morn, as Elias towed his mount to browse, he spied fresh shoe marks in the cracked loam. 3 beasts, stout boot treads sunk deep. He hunkered low, sifting the powder with his digits. The aged scout in him ken swift. These rang not troopers, peddlers belike, or pursuit folk. Elias fared back to the hut, his mug weighted with musing. Lyra peered up, her shadowed orbs keen, wary, swift. In his mute she scanned aught she wist o'er well. Strife loomed nigh. They've spied me, she grated hoarse, her broad paw cinching around the stiletto lashed to her flank. Elias denied not. He flung the locker, hauled the dust-veiled repeating arm. The keen clack of the bolt seating hushed the space. Yola beheld, not yet grasping. That waning, 3 rogues loomed at the rise's foot. One, bushy-bearded and clad in fur-trimmed wrap, advanced. He smirked, tones slack and mocking. Words out Mr. Thorn hears, harbouring aught astray from the barter den, where soul here to reclaim it. State your toll, swift bargain. Elias reared on the veranda, his blue orbs chill as flint. Begone, naught of freight here. The rogue chortled, wrapping the stock of his bark. Make us not storm in and haul it forth.
Within the hut, Lyra loomed nigh her kin, orbs aflame. Elias raised his paw subtle astern, bidding her bide calm. Then he levelled the repeater. The tube gleamed stark neath the ebbing beam. One stride more, and ye'll grave your frames in this sod. The ether waxed dense. One false twitch, and ichor would flow. At last the rogues hawked eke the turf, and swung their mounts, cantering off in a whirl of russet powder. But one peered back and sneered. "Aye, Thorn, hoard your wee wildling, but ye'll rue it." The powder haze ebbed afar, leaving a leaden hush. Elias lowered the arm, but his orbs clung to the skyline, keen with strain. He wist this rang sole the dawn. As the twilight deepened, Lyra gained his side, her timbre low, queaking faint. "They'll fare back, and they'll grant you no ease." Elias inclined his head, his iron-blue regard pinned on the gore-hued skyline. Deep within, he wist from this nonce on, each trail he and she trod would lace as one through blaze and through gore. I cherish you being here. And if this yarn stirred recalls of crimson, powdery gloamings and the thud of shoes echoing in your breast, tap that subscribe button, so each dawn we perch conjoint anew, and I'll spin you another yarn from the frontier. 3 dawns post the clash, the New Mexico vault gloomed with tempest wrecks, and the zephyr whipped up russet powder like a bode from the sod itself. Elias had shawled the casements and heaped extra sods afore the veranda. Lyra honed her edge, the blaze in her obsidian orbs searing wild and keen. Yala was stowed in the tight creep neath the boards, swathed in a cosy fleece with a skin of fluid by her flank. "Stir not till I hail you," Elias grated, his tone firm yet steady. The wee one inclined her head, her broad orbs dewing. Clutching the timber poppet, her dam had carved scarce the span air. The rumble of pounding shoes thundered afar, like gales smiting the loam. Elias cinched his repeater tighter. O'er a dozen riders burst through the haze, led by the samesome bushy rogue from Ayr, now astride a hulking beast with a lash dangling at his thigh. He bellowed, "Elias Thorn, deem not ye can veil her aye. Fetch the dame forth, and we'll spare thy breath. Elsewise this hut will blaze." Elias gained the veranda, tall and gaunt like a storm-scarred spire. His iron regard rooved the rogues. For a tick the gale hiked his aged hide coot, bearing the tough torso of a soul who'd faced fray and fared through. "Ye fared seeking gore? Then deem not to quit this stead quick." The keen snap of a charged arm rent the hush. Lyra loomed scarce astern him, clasping her timber arc, the shaft-head swaddled in rag and primed to kindle. In that tick 2 dooms, a herder who'd forfeit all, and a shunned Navajo dame melded as one. The rogues cleft to 2 bands, one wheeling to the rear, the t'other surging straight. Elias loosed prime.
The slug rent the zephyr, clipping the lead rogue in the arm and hurling him from his mount. His wail hurled the other beasts to rout. The bushy rogue swore, cracking his lash and spurling the rest on. Lyra's kindled shaft sped, bedding in the sheaf of sear fodder they'd lashed as tinder. Blaze erupted, flinging the assailants to deeper rout. Within ticks, the russet flats turned a nook of perdition. Bark crack, mounts shrieking, blaze and reek and powder everywhere. Elias reloaded in a whirl, each bark claiming its toll, felling 3 or 4 rogues in swift spate. Lyra matched fierce, gliding like Umbra through the hot, flinging edges and speeding shafts with unswerving aim. At last the assailants fled in rout, leaving gore-streaked wakes and sundry toppled mounts. The bushy rogue peered back. Spite and dread twisted in his orbs as he bade, "This ends not, Thorn!" As the reek cleared, Elias leaned 'gainst the veranda post, heaving deep. His paws quaked faint, but his orbs gleamed keen. Lyra crossed sands, gore tracing her cheek, the depths of her obsidian orbs agleam with still honour. Not past lips, they mere traded a drawn regard. And in that tick an unseen bond sealed their dooms as one, through whate'er gales might fare. Gloaming dropped, and the flats plunged to a hush so profound 'twas nigh eerie. Post the clash, the ether round the hut hung leaden, dense with the clinging tang of char and the wine of zephyr through sear sward. Elias perched on the veranda treads, the repeater lax cross his knees. The blaze gleam from a wee pyre of burning boughs hurled shades over his gaunt, rugged mug. From within the hut, Lyra crossed sands, her knotted reven locks tumbling over her broad shoulders. Scorched gore yet marked her cheek, but her orbs burned keen, brimmed with vigour. She settled beside him. Her broad, scar-knobbed paws quaked faint as they lay on her haunches. Elias peered over, then mute proffered her the fluid skin. Lyra nipped long, her huff heavy, as if to seek to void the strain of the whole span. They must loathe us deep by now, her timber-grated horse scarce above a breath. I wist, Elias riposted plain. He drew slow on his cheroot, the Asia reek coiling into the gale and fading to the gloom. A drawn hush draped twixt them.
Then Lyra wheeled to him, her profound obsidian orbs pinned on his. He could have bade us begone, flung us afar to shun strife, but he did not. Why? Elias held mute to span. His iron-blue orbs bored out at the sable stretch where moonbeams traced wan silver veins across the cleft loam. I forfeited all once, my spouse, a might that ne'er drew first gale. All left me was this stead, and the mute that trailed it. I cannot behold another spirit wane afore me, not in you. Lyra's paws clinched, her lips quaking. She'd ne'er looked for a soul to spake thus to her. I cannot pledge ye calm, she grated, her tone low yet steadfast. But I vow this, my kin and I will bide thy flank till our last huff. Elias wheeled to face her. Their orbs clashed in that tick. Naught of honeyed terms needed, naught of clasp traded, but aught deeper than ardour forged twixt them. A still oath witnessed soul by the sparks and the boundless gloaming. Within the hut, Yola stirred soft in a slumber, her hoofs calm and even. Psalms the chill zephyr wailed through the timber pale. But on the veranda 2 forms perched flank to flank, mute, steady, unbowed. That eve, in the core of peril and umbra, they seized aught both deemed forfeit, creed. Ere the sun could climb, the flats quaked neath the thunder of hushes. Elias sprang to his feet, repeater eye and fist. Lyra reared beside him, arc drawn taut, her obsidian orbs agleam. On the rise a horde of horsemen surged forth, 20 riders, their powder-swathed smocks clinging, frayed banners flapping wild in the gale.
At the van rode the bushy rogue, his mug now warped with spite. "Thorn," he roared, "this dawn ye atone." The prime bark rent the dawn. Elias riposted fire, his slug kicking loam as it grazed the rogue's flank. Lyra bounded to toil, her shaft plunging into a stack of chaff they'd heaped to doom the hut. The blaze roared quick, so in rout midst the assailants. The horsemen cleft to twain wings, storming the hut like a wolf pack. The fray plunged to rout, bark crackled, mounts wailed, reek coiled to the vault, veiling the brawlers in a blinding murk. Elias culled sundry rogues with keen barks, whiles Lyra glided like Umbra through the frenzy, hurling edges and speeding shafts sans miss. Flank to flank they brawled like a pair forged in blaze and fray. Then, just as the clash seemed like to whirl beyond ken, a keen ram's call pierced the ether from beyond the rise. The horsemen stilled as if gripped by unseen bonds. Through the haze a troop of troopers burst, clad in slate-blue garb, not reivers, but realm guards. Their banners and marks plain, irons gleaming in the beam. The troopers fanned to a pikeline, barring every flight. The head advanced, his timber booming like peals. "Bide down. By realm decree ye stand snared for flesh trade and armed lift." The bushy rogue's eyes bulged. He hiked his bark in a last spiteful bid. A heed bark cracked the vault, and within ticks troopers closed, pinning him to the loam. Others yanked from their saddles, trussed with stout cord. The traders flailed and bayed, caught aback by the haste and order of the guards. Midst the rout wails, the shrieks of mounts, Elias and Lyra loomed, heaving weighty. Lyra peered at the troopers, then back to Elias, her eyes dewing with affection, a weary grin forming on her lips. They'd stemmed a doom, and fairness fared just in the nick. The head neared, eyeing the wheel on Lyra's arm, and the mite dozing in the hut. He yielded a grave nod. "Thanks, Mr. Thorm. We've tailed these rogues long. A whisper tipped us, and the wake led straight hither. Ye fared well. Ye held the sod till we could fare." One trooper advanced, proffering Elias a sheaf of parch, snare writs, realm bids, a stark token that his toil now backed by statute. The traders, now fettered and hailed afar, bade vows of reprisal, but the sway they erst wielded rang gone. As the bark reek ebbed, morn beams pierced through the strewn cinders and slug rents. Elias laid a paw on Lyra's shoulder, his timber low yet resolute. There he roar. Lyra wheeled to him, her obsidian orb soft and breathed. We fed through as one. They both grinned. The thud of shoes waxed afar as the traders hailed off under realm watch, and the hut fed back to hush anew. The New Mexico sun climbed slow, spilling a cozy aureate gleam over the flats, yet scarred by shoe marks and the faint tang of powder.
Elias Thorn's tight hut yet reared, its timber flanks gashed by slugs, but the veranda beamed with the coziness of an early pyre and the soft babble of tongues. Lyra crossed sands, her broad shoulders swathed in a coarse rag, her sun-bronzed mug bearing the wheels of brawl, but in the profound umbra of her orbs, for the prime, a flicker of calm gleamed. Yola came bounding from within, clutching her timber poppet, her keen chortle rending the last shreds of strain in the ether. Elias perched on the veranda treads, his brim lax on his knee, eyeing the vista as if 'twere a reverie. For moons this stead had kenned soul-wailing zephyr and aching mute, now it pealed with mirth and the huffs of fresh kin. In the smoky cooked nook, Lyra bungled swirling a cauldron of gruel. Elias crossed in, soft lifted the skimmer from her paws, swirled it in, then laid it back. Their orbs clashed, plain, mute, but sufficing to warm both their cores. Sans the realm troopers had countered off, hailing the traders afar. Fairness served, and Elias rang no more a lone herder bucking the globe. He clutched mates, but paramount he clutched kin.
That eve, as the gale mellowed o'er the stretches, Elias perched on the veranda, Lyra beside him, Yola dozing serene in her dam's clasp. Elias soft laid his paw over Lyra's broad quaking paws. Henceforth, he breathed low, this rings our hearth. Lyra voiced naught, her orbs shimmered 'neath the moonbeam, and for the prime her lips arced to a true grin. That hut, erst token of lawn, had waxed the cradle of aught fresh, naught of right, naught of parch, just gore, toil, and creed lacing them as one. The vernal sun climbed, aureate o'er the flats, limning the three forms on the veranda, and from that stead a fresh yarn dawned, a yarn of ardour, of mending, and of a hearth forged by two spirits who'd erst forfeit all. Kin dear, out here on the vast flats, slugs may guard thy breath, but soul ardour and hearth can guard thy core. A rider may fare soul a lifetime, but when he spies kin to seek hearth to, that rings the mightiest triumph of all. 'Twas an honour to tread this trail with ye. May calm and weal trail ye whereso ye fare. I cherish ye all, my cherished throng, a frontier yarn spinning. Share how this yarn stirred ye. Scribe a note beneath. Key the rune 1 if it warmed ye, and mind to tap subscribe for more gripping yarns from the frontier.